There are 5.9 million commercial buildings in the United States. Every single one of them is required by fire code to have functioning emergency exit signs and backup lighting. And yet most building owners have no idea those lights need monthly inspections. That gap between what's required and what's ignored is where quiet fortunes are built. Today I'm going to show you 13 businesses that almost nobody talks about, that very few people even know exist, but that have real, measurable, growing demand. These aren't flashy startups. They aren't dropshipping stores or crypto plays. They're the businesses that cities, corporations, and homeowners literally cannot function without. And the last one on this list has such a shortage of qualified operators that companies are throwing multi-million-dollar contracts at anyone who can show up with the right equipment and a trained crew. My name is John. Let's get into it. Business 13, exit sign and emergency lighting inspection. Here's something that's hiding in plain sight in every building you walk into. Those green exit signs above doorways, those little backup lights that click on during a power outage. Fire code requires them to be visually inspected every single month and put through a full 90-minute battery discharge test every year. Non-compliance can result in fines of $500 to $5,000 per violation. And when a fire marshal shows up unannounced and finds dead batteries in your emergency lights, the citation alone costs more than a year's worth of maintenance would have. The emergency lighting market in the U.S. is valued at roughly $3.2 billion and projected to hit $4.8 billion by 2030, according to Grandview Research. But here's the thing most people don't realize. Building owners hate dealing with this. It's a compliance checkbox they have to check. And most of them are thrilled to pay someone else $50 to $200 per building per month to handle it. You can start this business for $3,000 to $15,000. A basic electrical toolkit, battery load testers, replacement parts, a ladder, and a vehicle. That's it. No specialized electrical license required in most states because it's considered low voltage maintenance. A solo operator with 50 to 100 building contracts can gross $100,000 to $300,000 a year with profit margins around 50 to 65%. One technician on an industry forum described starting this business after working for a fire alarm company. Within 2 years, he had over 80 building contracts and was grossing $18,000 a month. His exact words were, "Once you have a building, you have it forever because switching providers is a hassle." The pattern here is compliance-driven demand. The customer doesn't want your service, the government requires it. That distinction changes everything about how you sell and how long customers stay. Business 12, graffiti removal services. Graffiti costs American municipalities and property owners over $12 billion a year in cleanup. Los Angeles alone removes graffiti from over 30 million square feet of surfaces annually, and most cities are outsourcing the work to private contractors because maintaining in-house crews is more expensive. The startup cost here is $5,000 to $20,000. A hot water pressure washer, chemical removal agents, and some protective anti-graffiti coatings. The real money isn't just in the removal, it's in applying those anti-graffiti sealants afterwards. One coating application costs you 15 minutes and charges $500 to $2,000 for a building facade, and the best play is the retainer model. One operator on a pressure washing forum described offering property management companies a graffiti response retainer, $300 to $500 per month per property for guaranteed removal within 24 hours. Within a year, he had 15 retainer clients, bringing in an extra $6,000 a month with minimal additional work. His observation was that graffiti is emotional for business owners. They want it gone now, and they'll pay for speed. Studies show that graffiti reduces property values by 10 to 15%. That makes this an easy sell. You're not asking a property owner to spend money. You're asking them to stop losing money. Business 11, Bollard and safety barrier installation. This is the one that shocked me during research. According to the Storefront Safety Council, approximately 100 vehicle-into-building crashes happen every single day in the United States. Every day. That's not a typo. Over 500 people are killed or seriously injured annually in these incidents. And here's the part that should make your ears perk up. Fewer than 2% of commercial storefronts in the U.S. have protective bollards installed. The bollard market is valued at around $800 million and projected to reach $1.3 billion by 2030. A single steel bollard installation, which includes the bollard, concrete footing, and painting, charges $800 to $2,500. A typical storefront project with 4 to 8 bollards bills $5,000 to $20,000. Crash-rated anti-ram bollards used by government buildings and banks can bill $3,000 to $10,000 each. Startup costs run $15,000 to $50,000 for concrete cutting equipment, a small excavator, bollard inventory, and a truck. One contractor on a construction forum described specializing in storefront bollards after a car-through building incident at a local pharmacy made the news. He started cold calling every business in strip malls along busy roads. Within a year, he was doing 3 to 4 installations per week, billing an average of $8,000 per project. And he said something I won't forget. After every news story about a car crashing into a store, my phone rings for 2 weeks straight. It's the best marketing I don't pay for. Here's what nobody tells you about this business. Insurance companies are starting to offer premium discounts for Bollard protected storefronts, and cities are beginning to adopt building codes that require them. This market is about to accelerate. Business 10, driveway sealing and asphalt seal coating. There are approximately 50 million asphalt driveways in the United States, and every single one of them needs to be sealed every 2 to 3 years. The seal coating market is estimated at $3.5 to $5 billion annually, according to the National Pavement Contractors Association, and the startup cost might be the lowest on this entire list, $3,000 to $15,000. Some operators start with a 55-gallon drum sprayer, squeegees, a used trailer, and a stack of door flyers for under $2,500. An average 2-car driveway takes about an hour and charges $200 to $400. Material cost per driveway is $30 to $60. Do the math. A 2-person crew completing 5 driveways a day at $300 each is $500 a day. That's $7,500 a week. On our sweaty startup, which is one of the most practical business forums on the internet, seal coating is one of the most frequently discussed businesses for a reason. One operator described starting with $20,500, grossing $85,000 in his first season working part-time from April through October, and hitting $180,000 in year 2 after hiring 1 helper. His advice was simple. Every single house on every single street is a potential customer. In the Sun Belt, you can work year-round. In northern states, the seasonality actually works in your favor because it creates urgency. Homeowners know they have a narrow window, and that urgency drives faster decisions. Business 9, commercial refrigeration repair. Here's the uncomfortable truth about this one. When a restaurant's walk-in cooler fails on a Friday night, they lose $5,000 to $20,000 in spoiled food in a single night. They don't shop around for a better quote. They call whoever can get there first, and they pay whatever it takes. The commercial refrigeration market in the U.S. is valued at about $15.7 billion, according to Grand View Research. With over 1 million restaurants and 40,000 grocery stores in the country, each running multiple refrigeration units, the demand for repair technicians is enormous. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that the existing HVACR workforce is aging out faster than new technicians are entering the field. Startup costs run $15,000 to $50,000. You need your EPA Section 608 certification for handling refrigerants, refrigeration tools, a service van with parts inventory, and diagnostic equipment. The numbers are compelling. Service calls charge $100 to $250 for the first hour, with $75 to $150 per hour after. Average repair ticket is $300 to $1,500. Walk-in cooler compressor replacements bill $2,000 to $5,000. One technician on our HVAC described leaving a commercial HVS company to start his own commercial refrigeration repair service. Within 6 months, he had more work than he could handle. He was billing $200 an hour for emergency calls and grossing over $30,000 a month as a solo operator. Let's do the simple math. 3 service calls a day at an average ticket of $600. That's $1,800 a day, $9,000 a week, $468,000 a year. And the reason it works is the same reason so many businesses on this list work. Emergency demand with a severe labor shortage. Business 8, industrial equipment calibration. This one sounds technical, and that's exactly why almost nobody is doing it. The calibration services market globally is valued at about $7.8 billion and projected to exceed $11.5 billion by 2030, according to Markets and Markets. Every manufacturing plant, every food processing facility, every pharmaceutical company, every hospital is legally required to calibrate their measuring instruments on a regular schedule. Scales, pressure gauges, temperature sensors, flow meters. If the readings are off, products fail, recalls happen, and people get hurt. In the pharmaceutical industry alone, a single out-of-calibration temperature sensor can cause a product recall worth millions of dollars. That makes calibration an absolute non-negotiable expense. Startup costs run $20,000 to $75,000 for reference instruments, calibration management software, a service van, and ISO 16125 accreditation. The charges are $50 to $500 per instrument, depending on complexity. A mobile calibration technician can service 10 to 25 instruments per day. One operator on a metrology forum described leaving a corporate calibration lab to start a mobile service. Within 18 months, he had 40 recurring clients, food processing plants, machine shops, and medical facilities, and was grossing over $25,000 a month as a solo operator. The line that stuck with me was, Once you have a client, they never leave because they're required to calibrate on schedule. Keith Abraham wrote in Creating Loyal, Profitable Customers that the most powerful business model is one where the customer's purchase is mandated by regulation. That's exactly what this is. Business 7, catch basin and storm drain cleaning. There are an estimated 20 million catch basins in the United States that need regular cleaning. The EPA's MS4 program requires municipalities to maintain their stormwater systems, which means this work isn't optional for cities. It's federally mandated. The stormwater management market is valued at roughly $12 billion. The barrier to entry here is higher. A vacuum truck, even used, costs $30,000 to $80,000, with new combo units running $150,000 to $400,000. But the economics are serious. Catch basin cleaning charges $75 to $300 per basin. A truck crew can clean 15 to 40 basins per day. Let's do the math on the conservative end. 15 basins at $150 each is $2,250 a day. One operator described starting with a single-used vac truck for $45,000 and landing a county contract for 200 basins at $150 each. A $30,000 contract completed in about 2 weeks. Within 3 years, he had 3 trucks in contracts with 4 municipalities, grossing over $1.5 million annually. His explanation was straightforward. Municipalities have to clean these. It's an EPA mandate. The contracts renew every year. Once you're in, you're in. A single clogged catch basin during a heavy rainstorm can cause $50,000 to $500,000 in flood damage to surrounding properties. That urgency is what makes municipalities consistent paying customers. Business 6, waterproofing and foundation repair. Here's a number that surprised me. According to the American Society of Civil Engineers, approximately 25% of all homes in the United States will experience some form of foundation distress during their lifetime. 1 in 4 homes. The foundation repair market is valued at about $4.1 billion and projected to reach $5.8 billion by 2030. And the broader waterproofing market sits at $8 to $10 billion. The average ticket on a residential waterproofing job is $5,000 to $8,000. Full foundation stabilization with pier installation bills $10,000 to $50,000 per project. Profit margins run 30 to 50%. One operator on our sweaty startup described starting a basement waterproofing company with $25,000 in equipment. By year 3, he had a crew of 4 and was grossing over $1.2 million annually. His best observation was that every rainy season is basically a marketing campaign for us. And here's what makes this business beautiful from a sales perspective. Climate change is increasing extreme weather events, which drives more water intrusion. The aging U.S. housing stock, where the median home is now over 40 years old, means more foundations developing cracks. And during real estate transactions, home inspectors routinely flag foundation issues, creating mandatory demand. The customer often has no choice but to fix it. Business 5, erosion control and hydroseeding. Most people have never heard the word hydroseeding, but construction companies spend millions on it every year. Hydroseeding is spraying a mixture of seed, mulch, and water onto bare soil to establish vegetation quickly. It's used on construction sites, highway medians, new developments, and post-wildfire recovery zones. And here's the critical detail. In most jurisdictions, construction sites can be fined $10,000 to $50,000 per day for inadequate erosion control. That means your customers can't delay. They need you yesterday. The startup cost for a hydroseeding business is $30,000 to $100,000. with the biggest expense being the hydroseeder itself. Used machines run $15,000 to $40,000. Revenue is charged per square foot, $0 to $2 for residential, and $0 to $0.10 for large commercial projects. One operator on our sweaty startup described running a hydroseeding business with a $35,000 used machine, doing 3 to 4 residential jobs per day during spring and fall, grossing $3,000 to $5,000 daily. He called erosion control for builders his bread and butter because developers must comply with stormwater permits. A typical residential job covering 10,000 square feet bills $800 to $2,000 with material costs of just $200 to $500. Some operators only work seasonally and still gross over $200,000. The demand is regulatory. That makes it recession resistant. Business 4, septic tank lid riser installation. There are approximately 21 million homes on septic systems in the U.S., according to the EPA. Every 3 to 5 years, those tanks need to be pumped. And for millions of older homes built in the 1970s through the 1990s, the septic tank lid is buried 1 to 3 feet underground. Every time the pumping truck arrives, someone has to dig up the yard. That dig costs $150 to $300 each time. The fix is a riser, a simple tube that brings the lid up to ground level permanently. You install it once, and the homeowner never pays for digging again. Each installation charges $300 to $800 and costs you $100 to $250 in materials. It takes under 2 hours. A single installer can complete 2 to 4 jobs per day. The U.S. septic systems market is valued at around $7.4 billion and projected to hit $10.7 billion by 2034. And many septic pumping companies don't offer riser installation, which leaves a gap. One common thread across Septic is homeowners describing how relieved they were after getting risers installed. It's a no-brainer sale because the homeowner recoups their investment after 1 to 2 pumping cycles. Some counties are now requiring risers during property sales or inspections. The startup cost is laughably low, $2,000 to $10,000 for riser kits, basic tools, and a vehicle. No specialized license typically required. Business 3, aerial drone inspection services. The commercial drone services market in the U.S. was valued at $7.1 billion in 2023 and is projected to reach $23.8 billion by 2030, according to Grandview Research. That's a compound annual growth rate of nearly 19%. The FAA reports over 360,000 commercial drones already registered and climbing. Why? Because a traditional roof inspection takes 2 to 3 hours with ladders, scaffolding, and liability risk. A drone does the same inspection in 20 minutes. A traditional cell tower inspection costs $5,000 to $15,000 and requires a climber risking their life. A drone does it for $500 to $2,000 with zero safety risk. Startup costs run $5,000 to $25,000. A commercial-grade drone, a Part 107 remote pilot certificate from the FAA, which costs $175, liability insurance, and a vehicle. Roof inspections charge $150 to $500 per property. Cell tower inspections charge $500 to $2,000 per tower. Construction site 3D mapping bills $2,000 to $5,000 per scan. One operator on our Sweaty Startup shared that he started a drone roof inspection business targeting insurance adjusters. He invested about $8,000, got his Part 107, and within 6 months had contracts with 3 local insurance agencies. He was doing 4 to 6 inspections daily at $250 to $400 each, bringing in $5,000 to $8,000 per week. Insurance companies love drones because they're faster, safer, and cheaper than sending an adjuster up a ladder, and the federal infrastructure bill is funding billions in bridge, road, and utility inspections. This market is not slowing down. Business 2, fiber optic cable splicing and low voltage wiring. The federal government just allocated $45 billion through the Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment Program to expand high-speed internet access across the country. Most of that expansion is happening through fiber optic cable, and there aren't enough people to install it. The U.S. fiber optic market was valued at $6.3 billion in 2023 and is projected to reach $11.2 billion by 2030. The structured cabling market globally is expected to hit $17.4 billion by 2028. But the real story is the workforce gap. The U.S. is estimated to need over 100,000 additional fiber technicians over the next 5 to 7 years. Some areas already have wait times of 6 to 12 months for fiber installation. Startup costs are $10,000 to $50,000 for a fusion splicer, an OTDR tester, toolkits, and a work van. Fiber splicers charge $75 to $200 per splice, and experienced technicians complete 20 to 40 splices per day. Low voltage contractors charge $65 to $150 per hour for commercial jobs. One contractor on our Sweaty Startup describes starting with $15,000 in equipment and landing a $180,000 annual contract with a regional ISP in his first year. He noted the work was nonstop, and he had to turn down jobs because he couldn't hire fast enough. Robert Kiyosaki wrote in Rich Dad, Poor Dad that the richest people don't work for money. They identify where money is flowing and position themselves in the stream. Right now, $45 billion is flowing toward fiber optic infrastructure. You don't need to catch all of it, you just need a bucket. Business 1, utility vegetation management. This is the one I teased at the beginning, and the numbers are staggering. The U.S. utility vegetation management market was valued at $8.5 billion in 2023 and is projected to reach $14 billion by 2030, according to Frost and Sullivan. The top 100 U.S. utilities collectively spend over $7 billion per year trimming trees away from power lines. PG&E alone spends over $2 billion a year on vegetation management after its equipment caused devastating wildfires. And here's the reason: this business has more demand than anyone can fill. Vegetation contact is the #1 cause of power outages in the United States, accounting for approximately 30% of all outages. Power outages cost the U.S. economy an estimated $150 billion annually. Utilities are legally required to manage vegetation near their lines, and the penalties for failing to do so are catastrophic, not just fines. Wildfire liability. Yes, the startup costs are significant. Bucket trucks, chippers, climbing gear, and specialized insurance bring you to $50,000 to $200,000. But utility contracts pay $800 to $3,000 per crew per day. A single 3 to 4 person crew operating 250 days a year generates $200,000 to $750,000 in annual revenue. Multi-crew operations with contracts across multiple utilities gross $2 million to $10 million or more. And these aren't one-off jobs. They're 3 to 5 year contracts that renew. One operator on our Arborists described running a 3-crew company under contract with a regional utility. His annual contract was worth $2.1 million and renewed every 3 years. His biggest challenge wasn't finding work, it was finding workers. His exact words were, "There are not enough qualified line clearance workers. If you can recruit and train a crew, the utilities will throw work at you because they're desperate." After hurricanes and major storms, emergency work pays double or triple normal rates. The industry has an estimated 10,000 to 20,000 unfilled line clearance positions nationwide. That labor shortage is your opportunity. And that brings me to the pattern running through every business on this list. None of them are trendy. None of them will get you likes on social media. But all of them share something that 90% of businesses people chase on the internet don't have. Mandatory demand, regulatory requirements, emergency urgency, and very few competitors. Morgan Housel wrote in Same as Ever that the businesses that last aren't the ones that ride waves. They're the ones that serve needs that never go away. Exit signs will always need batteries. Foundations will always crack. Trees will always grow toward power lines. Storm drains will always clog. That's not a market trend. That's physics. Think about 2 people. Marcus spent 3 years chasing the next big idea. He launched a subscription box, tried a social media agency, dabbled in NFTs. None of them stuck because they were all built on attention, and attention moves on. Elena spent those same 3 years building a commercial refrigeration repair business in her city. She got certified, bought a service van, and answered the phone when restaurants called at midnight. Today, she has 3 technicians working for her and a waiting list of customers. She didn't need a brilliant idea. She needed a boring one that people couldn't say no to. The question isn't which of these businesses sounds the most exciting. The question is which one solves a problem that won't go away in a market where not enough people are willing to do the work, because that's where the demand is hiding, not in the spotlight, in the gap. If this changed how you think about business, hit that like button. It genuinely helps more people find this content. Subscribe if you want to keep learning about how ordinary people build real wealth. Tell me in the comments which of these 13 businesses surprised you the most. I'm John, and I'll see you in the next video.